At Cargomatic, it really is all about the well-being of the people who drive for us. We want to give them work-life balance. We want to reduce their stress levels, give them access to financial resources so they can have the proper medical care. We want them to be able to go to sleep and wake up in their bed. We want them to be able to spend time with their family and have a nutritious home-cooked meal. These are all things that many truck drivers haven't been able to have over the decades, spending long hours on the road, away from their family. And these are the things that we're solving at Cargomatic, again, by localizing freight and by making sure that our drivers are getting what they need to be able to take care of themselves each and every day.
That is Weston Labar, Head of Strategy at Cargomatic. Weston, thank you so much for that message. And we are right on the precipice of World Cancer Day on February 4th. And so we wanted to take this episode of the podcast to do some education around cancer and the risks that are posed to truck drivers specifically. So joining me here today on the podcast is John Elliott of Carevive. John, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Excellent stuff. So, John, just give us a little introduction into who you are and your background at Carevive and a little bit more about the mission of the company. So tell us a little bit more about Carevive and what it is that you do there.
Yeah, thanks so much. So Carevive, we're really focused on improving the oncology continuum, the patient and the care team's experience, and really looking at the real-world evidence data with clinical data to ultimately improve the outcome for patients. So that's a summary of what we do at Carevive. That's what we do every day. In my role, it's really understanding both the care team and the patient, everything from preventative, the pre-cancer population, prevention, diagnosis, treatment, through survivorship.
Good stuff, John. Are there particular cancers and things that truck drivers are at a specific risk for that you think is worth calling out here on the podcast?
Sure. So I will say firsthand, I'm not a clinician, but very engaged with this population and the care teams that support them. So from our experience and what we witness as we work with cancer centers on a daily basis, you think of there's barriers to care, there's quality of life, there's different components that always lead to maybe tumor types or diagnosis that they're more susceptible to. In the truck driver or logistics population, I'd say definitely probably skin cancers, so myeloma, or potentially lung cancer. And some of those, like say in the myeloma instance, they're just susceptible to that, right? They're on the road, windows down, windows up. You're still receiving a lot of sunlight, and there's direct correlation. You see it, at least the little bit of reports that I've seen around this have shown, if it's on your left side or your right side, depending on the geography globally, right? When you're driving and you're on the right side or the left side of the truck, there's a direct correlation the amount of sun you receive, and unfortunately, direct correlation with diagnosis of lung.
Absolutely. A big part of cancer treatment is early detection, right? And for truck drivers who live such a mobile lifestyle and work such a job that keeps them on the road so much, it can be hard to establish a home base with a primary care physician. Can you talk a little bit maybe about some best practices and some tips for establishing that primary care physician that can help with early detection?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the importance of having a primary care provider is key, because they're ultimately kind of the doorway, in many instances, to capturing things early. They know the science, obviously, behind what puts you at risk. They're already tuned to what you're higher risk of, and they're aligned with the appropriate screening protocol to capture things as early as possible. Because with early detection also leads to more treatment plans, a higher survival rate, a better quality of life while in treatment. So think of that primary care provider. That's not to say as mobile as you are, but more of a home base that they can help you in many ways and have a significant impact on the outcome if you were to be diagnosed.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely, John. And another big thing that we've seen evolve quite a bit over the last 2 years, specifically because of the pandemic, is the use of telemedicine and telehealth. Can those same technologies be applied to people that live on the road the way that truck drivers do much of their lives? Can you apply some of that same telemedicine technology to truck drivers to help with, treatment and screenings and things along those lines?
Absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's telemedicine broadly, and yes, it was. I think the adoption really was driven by COVID, and now it's almost, let's say, an expectation for many patients, right? When you realize that you can have a consult with a primary care provider or specialist or many of the care team members remotely, it's much more convenient. right? So it's changed the expectation, and that's one example of being able to do kind of shared audio, video, much like we're doing in a podcast right now, where we're not physically together, but we're having a good dialogue, and I'm understanding, really able to comprehend and have a consultative conversation if you're a provider and you give guidance. You can apply that to other technologies. Fortunately, technology is helping support this population and being able to keep them connected with their care team no matter where they are.
Excellent stuff. Well, John, as I mentioned, February 4th is World Cancer Day. Do you have anything you want to say and leave the audience with ahead of World Cancer Day on February 4th before we sign off on this episode?
Yeah, I mean, prevention, so around your lifestyle, screening, so it's your responsibility, and in many instances, employers highly embrace that, to catch things early, to catch those warning signs, and then in treatment. So there are lots of options. Be open and working with your care team. There's options are changing every day. I mean, there's a lot of science behind that. There's a lot of influence behind making it better for the patient and for the care team. And I would just say for World Cancer Day, make a difference. Do the best you can at any stages that you're at, and you're just in your life, whether you're in that prevention, whether you're in that higher risk, and you need to be more. You should be more supportive maybe of screening. Do that, right? That little difference can make a huge impact on your loved ones, your employer, people that care about you, best friendships you have. It can all change a lot if you can just align with the prevention protocols, align with screening, and again, in the worst case for treatment, remain connected. And everybody, I believe, wants the best outcome.
Excellent stuff from John Elliott at Carevive. John, thank you again so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Great. Anytime, Tyler.
And everyone, thank you again so much for joining us for another episode of People on the Move, a podcast from Cargomatic. Again, I'm your host, Tyler Kern. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes of the show from Cargomatic. And in the meantime, you can visit their website and subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date with the latest. But for this episode, from my guest, John Elliott, I've been your host, Tyler Kern. Thanks for joining us.